cheers for His Majesty the King. Hip hip, hooray! Hip hip, hooray! Hip hip, hooray!
A huge cheer, a huge round of applause from the crowd there watching the second proclamation of the day that has just taken place at the Royal Exchange. And watching all that as it was happening, and watching as the procession now departs and heads back towards Mansion House, is Sonali Shah. Let's join her now.
What a moment of history here at the Royal Exchange. The silence, that's what you could really hear, the silence of thousands as they watched the proclamation. And then, as the last words were said, they were echoed by everyone around here. And the national anthem, you know, for many of these people, for most of these people, this will be the first time they have sung the new national anthem. And that was very, very moving. A lot of people with their hands on their hearts, a few tears I've seen in the crowd over here. And people are here with a heavy heart. They want to remember Her Majesty the Queen. They are talking about their memories of her, but they also want to welcome the new king. And then, when those cheers came, you could hear the cheers and the echo of the cheers ripple through the city of London here. It's been quite a moment for everyone. And so many people here talking about how they had to come here today to witness history in the making.
Sonali, thank you. The colour, the pageantry, the history that we have just seen take place there in London today, and that will continue tomorrow, Robert Harmon, won't it? Across the country.
It will, in the time-honoured tradition. From here, there'll be major proclamations in the capitals of the devolved nations, in Edinburgh and Cardiff and Belfast. But then, it rather like it did in the old days, if one can say that, it will be read on cathedral steps in county towns, and then from there it will be proclamations by local authorities up and down the country. So although we're obviously seeing the City of London here, it's not just a London event by any means. You know, wherever you are around the country, perhaps tomorrow there will be that proclamation being delivered to a local community, and that's as it always has been.
It is all about, David Olusoga, it's all about the continuity. Monarchy, it keeps going. We have had the death of the monarch very, very recently, but the passage keeps continuing, doesn't it? The crown is being handed on very quickly.
It is almost hard to believe that it is 48 hours since the passing of the Queen, because things have happened so quickly. Of course, in the age of absolute monarchs, there was very dangerous reasons why you would want accession to be confirmed, to be proclaimed, and to be unquestioned. I think what we're seeing here are traditions that we forgot we had. If you lived in the first half of the 20th century, you would have seen, if I've got my maths right, 4 passings of monarchs through death and abdication. You would have witnessed this in a much more less direct way 4 times. 70 years since these traditions were enacted. So it is reminding us of these layers of tradition that we've just forgotten about. And it is remarkable to see them. I'm looking at the trumpeters, and I'm thinking they've marched from the Royal College of Arms. Well, in the Royal College of Arms is a vellum roll of the 1511 Westminster tournament, which has royal trumpeters on it. So this sense of continuity, I mean, we are talking centuries and centuries.
But also, this has all been gathered together at incredibly short notice.
Well, I think we all heard rumours about how well planned things were, Operation London Bridge and Operation Unicorn. Well, I think we can now see the fruits of all of that detailed, careful planning. But of course, it has happened very quickly, very rapidly. That's why it's so shocking. So I think it's, you know, we're seeing the fruits of that that preparation, but we're also seeing real dynamism by the authorities to make this happen so quickly.
I just think it underlines the if you like, the allure, the some sort of almost primeval power of monarchy. It may be unfashionable to say so, but we have actually in our last lifetime, we have seen another monarch buried. I remember just a few years ago witnessing the funeral of Richard III in Leicester after he was discovered under a car park. And of course nobody knew him. He was a much demonised king. Nobody could possibly care two hoots about him. It was over 500 years ago. And yet, as his coffin came through on a gun carriage through the streets of Leicester, it was absolutely extraordinary. A sort of silence fell, and his funeral took place in the cathedral, and there was a sort of reverence accorded to this man is an alleged sort of child murderer from hundreds of years ago, and yet this was a king. This was someone who is is part of our history, and our reigns and our monarchs. They form the sort of punctuation marks, don't they, in our national story. And it's at times like this that we recognise that.
And I think irrespective of your views on constitutional monarchy, the rights and wrongs of a hereditary position, this is history. Irrespective of your views on it, this is part of our history, and we're seeing it enacted today.
I think we have had an idea as well of what is to come at the funeral of the Queen Mother. And when she lay in state, I remember well, I remember going in there and walking past her coffin. It was in the middle of the night, and the extraordinary atmosphere, and the thousands of people who turned out to file past her coffin. And that is going to happen again, isn't it? That is going to happen for the Queen.
It really is, and I think that, they have to give some thought as to how they manage that, because with the Queen Mother, the queues got so long. At one point, it was a 24-hour queue. I remember having to take a taxi to go to the end of the queue to talk to someone at the back. So you do realise you're going to be queuing for 24 hours. And they went, yeah, well, we've got snacks. And they queued through the night. And it was something. It was hundreds of thousands of people who wanted to pay their respects. And some people are old enough to remember doing that for Winston Churchill. How the millions who are going to want to pay their respects to the Queen, that's a matter for another day. But I mean, everyone, right around the world, but I'm sure millions, tens of millions of people in this country are going to want to say that they paid their respects.
And it will be, Elizabeth, for the family as well, a deeply private moment, although it will be played out very publicly, won't it? My darling Mama is how the new king referred to the Queen in his public address yesterday.
And he had such a close relationship to her, and it was so special and important to him. But you know what I was reflecting just now? This is so much focused on London inevitably today. But only in my village in East Sussex yesterday, the bell ringers came together to toll the bell for an hour, to ring the bells for an hour. There were people coming to the churches. This will be happening across the country. It's not just about urban centres. There are people in their own villages and their hamlets coming together. And that matters. And the Prince of Wales, as he was the king now, was one of the greatest champions for the countryside. There's such a strong bond there. So as much as we've heard today about his remarkable work in inner cities and bringing people together, and Black Lives Matter and all these important issues, he was the voice of the countryside. And the Queen Consort is too. They're great countrymen. They truly understand that part of the United Kingdom, which is so special. It's 70% of this country is the countryside, and that matters.
And it is going to be a very strange few days, week or so now, isn't it? Because there is still this shock about the transition, about what has happened.
I think people there'll be little things that just sort of trigger it. Everyone will go about their lives and probably go back to work on Monday. And then suddenly there'll just be something, you'll see a post box and it says E2R, and you're suddenly thinking, hang on, it's now C3R. I was looking at the state trumpeters there, their magnificent tunics, all that embroidery. I mean, at some point, there's got a lot of sewing coming up, because someone's got to, redo that. All if you think where E2R is, just the Queen's cipher, the Queen's imagery, her face is the most reproduced image, arguably, in history, because of all the coins and banks and banknotes and stamps in all her various realms over 70 years. And suddenly all that's going to change. And we just one day we'll reach into your purse and go, oh, good heavens, look, there's the king.
A final word from you, David?
It's interesting. I think it obviously is going to change the banknotes, the stamps. But after the passing of Queen Victoria, there was a flurry of naming things after Queen Victoria. And I think there will be another way in which Elizabeth II is imprinted on the country, even allowing Charles to take his rightful place on coins and notes.
Well, thank you all very much for joining me this morning as we witnessed history, an extraordinary moment not seen ever before in our lifetimes. What we witnessed, we were very fortunate to see it. Thank you all for being with me. So much change, so much upheaval in such a short space of time. A new Prime Minister, a new cabinet, the death of a queen, a constant for 70 years in all our lives. And this morning we have just witnessed the proclamation of the new king, King Charles III. We are at the start of many days of mourning, but also this is the beginning of a new chapter as the crown is passed from king, from queen to king, as it has been down the centuries. King Charles III, a new monarch and a new beginning. Goodbye.
Three cheers for His Majesty the King.